Conditions May Apply by CinnamonPinecones. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 163. The Fool Jingled Miserably Across the Floor. Life moved on, and finals approached faster than Izuku's classmates seemed comfortable with. All Might still hadn't tried to talk to him, but he wasn't sure if that was his choice or Mike and Eraser's choice. He'd been distracting himself by helping Ida and Uraraka with English and Hitoshi with math. But Todoroki didn't seem too concerned about exams. He and Todoroki were 4th and 5th in the class ranking, seemingly without much effort after all. He felt a little bad for the group going over to Yaoyorozu's house to study. Sure, he was probably more on top of assignments than they seemed to be, but it's not like he was studying like his life depended on it. At least it was a good morale boost for them to be working together. How can I be so prepared and so stressed at the same time? Uraraka groaned as she looked over her notes at the lunch table like she had been for the last week. He wished he could help her more. It seemed like things just clicked for some people and didn't for others. There wasn't much more he could do about that. Well, we have no idea what the practical will be, Ida chimed in helpfully. Uraraka sighed and looked ready to take a nap face first into her bowl of ramen. You'll do fine, Uraraka. You've been doing great. And all of his encouragement was cut off by something hitting him hard in the back of the head. His knee-jerk reaction was to strike back. He could feel the presence of someone still standing behind him, but no one looked scared, so the instinct turned into an odd full-body twitch. He turned his attention toward whoever had done that calmly and saw one of the students from Class 1B looking down their nose at him. The pain in his head, the chatter of the cafeteria, and the look of haughty disdain in the boy's eyes reminded him of days that he would much rather forget. Oh, sorry. Your head's so big that it's hard to miss. I heard you guys stumbled across the hero killer. Just like in the sports festival, Class 1A isn't happy unless they're the center of attention. You do realize you're not in the spotlight because people think you're good heroes, right? It's because... Shut the hell up, Monoma. Izuku didn't even realize he froze until Hitoshi spoke up. What the hell was his problem? He was supposed to be getting better, and now he's freezing up the second someone bullies him? He could see Uraraka tense up across from him, and it was pretty obvious that Hitoshi wasn't happy. He wasn't the only one affected by this. Him freezing up was letting them down. He needed to pull himself together. If you can't handle the truth, maybe you should stop getting yourselves into so much trouble. Here's some food for thought. People nearly died, Monoma. I nearly died. It was traumatic. We aren't reveling in the frickin' clout. Leave us alone and maybe try thinking before you speak. He interrupted the rant with more fight in his words than he had intended. Regardless of his botched attempt at responding normally, it had the desired effect. Monoma was staring at him like a gaping fish, but unfortunately so was everyone else. Well, I came over here to tell him off, but I think you did a better job than I could have. Another student from 1B interrupted the stunned silence. Monoma thankfully took that as his cue to leave. He shuffled away awkwardly, as if they wouldn't notice with another person there to distract them. Hello, Kendo. Ida shifted the group's focus. I'm sorry for him. I think he has a hole where his heart should be. She trailed off apologetically before continuing. So I was listening. I know you're all worried about what's going to be on the big final practical. I heard it's going to be robots, like in the entrance exam. I have a friend, a grade above us, and that's what she said. I know it's cheating, but oh well. I figured I might as well level the playing field. He heard Hitoshi's head hit the table before he saw it. That probably wasn't so reassuring for him, was it? His quirk was uniquely useless against those things. Come on, Hitoshi, you'll be fine. We've already fought them once, right? He tried to encourage him and simultaneously ignored the looks he was still getting from Ida and Uraraka. Uraraka seemed to have picked up on his discomfort and carried on trying to convince Hitoshi that he wasn't doomed, but he just let it fade to background noise. That was the second time he had snapped at someone recently, and he didn't like it. He was used to being angry, but he wasn't used to this. Word about the final had spread to the rest of the class by the end of the day, and everyone, aside from Hitoshi, seemed to be in good spirits about it. However, there was something about it that wasn't sitting right with him. Sure, it was a good benchmark to see how far they had come since the beginning of the year, an easy one-to-one comparison. But they had been running drills with each other and their instructors all term. Fighting against something that couldn't strategize against you in real time didn't seem like much of a challenge in comparison. However, it was their first final of many, so there had to be wiggle room to up the difficulty later on, right? It was that hypothesis sticking with him that ruined the surprise reveal later that week. The moment Izuku walked into view of the teachers waiting for them, he knew what they had in store. 10 teachers and 20 of them. The math wasn't difficult to work out. If they were fighting robots again, as the upperclassmen had said, then they wouldn't have this many staff members physically present. Remotely proctoring? Maybe, but not here in full hero garb. His mind started running in 1,000 different directions, different matchups, different opponents, who would make the most sense, and who he definitely wouldn't have to worry about. Unfortunately for him, he had a feeling he was going to be paired with Kachan. He tried to remind himself that this was what he had asked for, but that didn't make the prospect seem any more pleasant. He took a deep breath and reminded himself who he was. He was Jade now, and Jade could do this, no sweat. He reframed his perspective and let an old and easy confidence fall over him. He had taken down a gang and busted a drug den. He could spar with a teacher. Even after assuring himself, it felt like an eternity before the last stragglers finally showed up and Eraser began to address them. Now then, let's begin the last test. Remember, it's possible to fail this final. If you want to join your peers on the summer trip, then don't make any stupid mistakes, he warned. Why are all the teachers here? He heard Jiro mutter to no one in particular. I expect many of you have gathered information and believe you have some idea of what you'll be facing today. Eraser hedged the class's expectations. We're fighting those big old metal robots, Kaminari exclaimed. Fireworks, s'mores, here we come, Camp! Ashido chimed in as well. Oh, they were not going to be happy about this, were they? Actually, this year's test will be completely different for various reasons, Nedzu corrected cheerfully. The mood shift among the crowd of his peers was palpable. The test now has a new focus. There will be hero work, of course, but also teamwork and combat between actual people. So what does that mean for you? You students will be working together in pairs, and your opponents will be one of our esteemed UA teachers. Isn't that fabulous? Nedzu asked the class. No one reacted as though they thought that was fabulous. No, they all looked like they were walking to the gallows. To complete the exam, you will have 30 minutes. In order to win, your objective is to put these handcuffs on your teacher, or you can win if one of you manages to escape the combat stage. Nedzu continued to explain. This is going to be impossible, he heard Kaminari grumble. That's why the support course made these. Eraser answered the complaint that Izuku was surprised that he could even hear. Behold! Ultra-compressed weight! These babies will add half our body weight to our physiques, Mike announced far louder than necessary. It's not much, but they'll slow us down a bit. Better hope it's enough. Midnight added tauntingly. Now, without further ado, the matchups. First up will be Kirishima and Sato versus Cementos. Nezu took back the announcements. Ah, a test of endurance. They would have to be careful not to overexert themselves. Second, Koda and Jiro versus Present Mike. It made sense to pit Jiro against Mike, but Koda's involvement would rely heavily on their surroundings. If they were sent to the forest grounds, then the students' victory would be a done deal. But if they were stuck in a city setting, then he could see the odds tip toward Mike's favor. Third, Yaoyorozu and Uraraka versus 13. He could see a nervous smile on both of the girls' faces. That was a good matchup. Anything Yaoyorozu could make would just as easily be destroyed by 13's quirk. But anything Uraraka removed the gravity on, theoretically, wouldn't be affected by Black Hole at all. That is, assuming that 13's quirk functioned like a real black hole, which used gravity to pull things towards it. He was looking forward to watching that fight. Fourth, Hagakure and Shoji versus Snipe. Hagakure would be a difficult opponent for Snipe. How did Shoji factor into that equation? Perhaps if they got the chance to get into close range, then Shoji's hand-to-hand combat would have an opportunity to shine. Maybe Hagakure could distract and give Shoji a chance to get in close. Fifth, Tokoyami and Asui versus Ectoplasm. Oh, that made sense for Tokoyami, he supposed. None of the heroes present were capable of creating light, so sheer numbers would be the only real counter for him. It kind of felt like they just threw Asui into that matchup, though. Her biggest weakness would be fire or ice. She stood no chance against Todoroki. But none of the teachers fit that bill either. Maybe this was the Misfits group. Sixth, Sero and Ojiro versus Midnight. Sero's range would be integral to their success. Midnight's best play would be to camp out at the exit, so Sero would have to use his tape to ensnare her and allow Ojiro to escape. Given that he knew for a fact that Midnight was one of Eraser's friends, he had no doubt she knew how to fight against his capture weapon, which was admittedly quite similar to Sero's tape. This was not going to be an easy match. Seventh, Kaminari and Ashiro versus me, Nezu chirped cheerfully. Oh no, that just wasn't fair. At least they were toward the end. It gave them time to strategize. Would he get in trouble for helping them? Probably. Rest in peace. 8. Ida and Yaoyama versus Power Loader. Yes. Aoyama would have to clear the way for both of them to cross. A pilot and a shooter. Just like one of those video games Hitoshi had made him play until Izuku's clear lack of skill made it more frustrating than fun. That, or maybe they could use Aoyama's laser to add even more speed to Ida's engines. 9th, Shinso and Todoroki versus Eraserhead. He saw Hitoshi's eyes widen and his spine go stiff. He followed his gaze toward Eraser, who had the lower half of his face tucked into his capture weapon, the way he did when he was hiding a smirk. Sadistic bastard. Poor Hitoshi looked like he was going to shit himself. And finally, Bakugo and Midoriya versus All Might. Nezu concluded the announcements. What? He had expected to be paired with Bakugo. He practically begged for it. But against All Might? That was surprising, to say the least. Logistically, it made sense, but he hadn't missed the way Mike and Eraser had been glaring at All Might lately, and he wasn't entirely sure whether or not they had lifted their ban on All Might even being allowed to speak to him. He did his best to subtly glance at Eraser, but he was already looking back at Izuku. He had an eyebrow raised as if to ask if that was all right. So Izuku shot back a slight shrug and a face that said, yes, but I'm very confused. A glance at the rest of the class showed 18 people looking like they were planning what to say at their joint funeral, which almost made him laugh out loud. Was fighting All Might easy? No, not at all. It was All Might, for heaven's sake. But this wouldn't be their first spar, and he doubted it would be their last. He knew how to fight All Might, and he knew that All Might would never really hurt him, especially now that, oh, never mind. This made perfect sense now that he thought about it. This was less of a practical final and more of an elaborate group therapy session. Great. Regardless of whatever mind games were being played here, getting Katsuki Bakugo to work with him in any capacity was still by far the biggest challenge set before him at the moment. Hopefully, going against All Might would make that a bit easier. All Might was the only person he'd ever seen Kacchan express even a modicum of respect for. So he should be able to use that to his advantage. If Kacchan actually saw their opponent as a threat, he'd be more likely to employ help. Not very much more likely, but it was something. Well, it was nice knowing you, Izuku. It's a shame we won't be able to speak at each other's funeral, Hitoshi lamented after the teachers dismissed the group to strategize. Izuku scoffed out a laugh at his antics. Why are you laughing? You're going up against All Might. Did your last brain cell short out? Why aren't you scared? Hitoshi taunted. Shinso, be more encouraging, Ida chastised, but very notably didn't disagree. I think the bigger challenge is going to be getting Bakugo to cooperate, Todoroki pointed out as his eyes tracked Kacchan's figure stalking away without so much as an attempt to check in with his teammate. That was surprisingly perceptive for Todoroki. Maybe there was hope for him yet. Why the heck would they pair you up with him? That's so not fair. He'd work with anyone else in the world over you, Uraraka complained on his behalf. She had never dropped her grudge against Kacchan since that first practice drill where he almost took the entire building down. I'm pretty sure that's the point, he agreed. Why does that have to be your problem? They're punishing you for his horrible attitude. This could affect your grade. What if he tries to hurt you again? We need to talk to one of the teachers. This is stupid, she ranted, already starting to storm her way toward the nearest teacher. Wait, it's fine, Uraraka. No, it's not. Going up against All Might is challenging enough. Adding Bakugo's vendetta against you isn't fair. He's a bully. She cut him off and kept walking. He thanked his lucky stars that Mike and Eraser were the closest teachers. Unfortunately, they were also standing with Midnight. He really did not want to drag more people into this. Is there a problem? Eraser asked when a clearly furious Uraraka planted herself in front of him. Yes, Midoriya shouldn't have to be paired with Bakugo. It isn't fair. Bakugo won't work with him. She wasted no time in getting to the point. Eraser spared a glance over toward him, and he shot back a vaguely apologetic shrug. It's part of the challenge. We curated these matchups carefully. Eraser answered in a level tone. It's only a challenge for Midoriya. You guys are making Bakugo's issues Midoriya's problem. Don't you remember what happened on the second day of class? Even the first day. He's a bully, and you're making... Uraraka, please. He begged her to stop. No, this isn't right, she insisted. Kiddo, you don't need to worry about Midoriya. He knows what he's getting into. He's got his own back, Mike tried to assure. He shouldn't have to have his own back. This is a team exercise. No one else has to work against both their opponent and their teammate, she pointed out. He could see both Mike and Eraser trying to figure out how to placate her. But there was no way they were going to do that without painting themselves as the enemy in her eyes. He didn't know Midnight well enough to read her, but her silence told him that she was leaning toward Uraraka's side. He couldn't just stand by and let them make asses of themselves just so that he didn't have to talk about his problems. I asked them to. He admitted quietly into the charged silence. Hitoshi was the only one who had followed them over, so thankfully it wasn't too big of a crowd. But they were all looking at him now. Well, everyone except Midnight, who was raking her sharp gaze over Mike and Eraser. What? Uraraka asked the question of the hour. I just don't be mad at them. It's not their fault. Midoriya, enough. Eraser cut him off. This was discussed to an extent beforehand. So no, we did not do this without Midoriya's say-so. But neither did Midoriya withhold information about the finals from all of you. We can continue this later if need be, but I suggest you two start strategizing with your partners and stop worrying about Midoriya. Uraraka made a sour face in response, but she didn't say anything. What that meant was, thank you for your concern. You're a good friend, but he's gonna be fine. Mike translated Eraser's bluntness. She looked at him as if to give him a chance to take it all back and continue blaming the teachers, but he didn't. He just offered her an awkward but genuine smile. She told off the teachers for him. That was so kind and brave. She was going to be an incredible hero. They both hesitated to leave and spared him another glance before heeding Eraser's advice to rejoin their partners. It seemed as though Yaoyorozu had held back Todoroki and Ida from following because the trio was looking over to them expectantly, but thankfully out of earshot. I'm sorry. I didn't want her to think that I shouldn't have said anything. It's fine, kid. I understand. Eraser dismissed. Yeah, we appreciate the consideration, kiddo, but we can handle ourselves. You dig? Yeah, sorry. I dig. He replied awkwardly. Eraser huffed out a laugh at his response, but Midnight was full belly cackling while Mike beamed at him. They were pumping their fist in the air like they had just won the lottery, and Izuku was very confused. Oh, you even got Eraser with that one, Midnight taunted the lingering grin on the man's face. What? Mike's always trying to get someone to respond to "ya dig" with "yes, I dig," but I honestly don't think it's ever happened organically before, Midnight explained. No, it has, Mike insisted. Fans don't count. They'll yes and whatever, anything you say, Midnight countered. The dejected look on Mike's face spoke volumes. It's gonna catch on, I'm telling you. Yes, doll. You've been telling us that for 15 years, Midnight replied with a patronizing pat on the back. Eraser shot him another, are you sure this is fine? Look, and he sent a nod back. This was what he had asked for. It was too late to back out now, anyway. The first match is going to start soon. I assume you'd want to watch. Eraser prompted him, nodding his head toward the station set up for viewing. Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. He sputtered out awkwardly and made a strategic retreat. He had meant to take notes on the fights, but he was only half paying attention and he figured he could write down his thoughts later anyways. Maybe Eraser was right about that photographic memory thing. Regardless of that, his current focus was split between the screens in front of him and how he was going to get Condtions to work with him. He was going to be walking a tightrope between goading him on enough to spur him into action, but not so much that he ended up trying to knock his lights out. He had a feeling that wouldn't count as working together. Everyone else's exams passed largely as he had expected them to. He was disappointed to see Kirishima and Sato fail, unsurprised to see Kaminari and Ashido fail, and impressed by Sero and Ojiro's unexpectedly fluid teamwork. Fashioning temporary gas masks out of Sero's tape was Ojiro's idea, and between that and Sero's ranged attacks, Ojiro was able to slip the handcuffs on Midnight's wrists. Though he nearly passed out for his efforts, that was a pretty risky move. He was delighted to prove his hypothesis on the interaction of Uraraka's and 13's quirks. Anything Uraraka touched wasn't affected by Black Hole. He was completely caught off guard by 13's hand-to-hand combat ability, though, and it seemed Yaoyorozu was as well. That, combined with Yaoyorozu's lack of familiarity in dealing with zero gravity, made the fight honestly a little funny to watch. They managed to subdue 13 with a series of tethers that the girls wove around 13 like a spider web. Speaking of humorous fights, he felt a little bad for laughing at Mike. He'd seen how distressed they got when there was a spider in the apartment. They had sent Bastard after it quickly, claiming that being pretty and killing Satan's progeny were the cat's only redeeming qualities. Ida and Aoyama's fight with Power Loader was pretty funny too. They ended up using Aoyama's laser to boost Ida's speed, something which they weren't at all prepared for. They sent themselves rocketing across the test stage so quickly that they had taken Power Loader along with them through the gate. Needless to say, all three of them got a visit from Recovery Girl shortly thereafter. He may be biased, but he thought that Shinso and Todoroki versus Eraser was the most underrated fight among the few peers who stayed to watch matches with him. Eraser was a difficult opponent, and he wasn't flashy. It didn't make for an engaging show, he supposed, but they didn't see all the details he saw. Eraser could cancel out any long-range attack Todoroki could send his way, and he had stronger mid-range and close combat capabilities than either of his opponents as well. Regardless of Erasure, Hitoshi's quirk wouldn't be very helpful against Eraser in the first place. He wasn't very talkative in general, and now, knowing Hitoshi's activation requirements, brainwashing was practically as useless as it would be against the robots. In the end, their fight came down to pure hand-to-hand combat ability. They used the fact that Eraserhead couldn't take his eyes off Todoroki to their advantage. Hitoshi stayed in his blind spot at all times, making it so that there was very little he could do to block. Eventually, Hitoshi was able to trip him up with his capture weapon and secure the cuffs around his wrists. He wished he could stay and watch these matches all day, but far sooner than he would have liked, the time came, and he had to face the music. Kacchan got onto the bus waiting for them, and there was nothing Izuku could do but follow. As the shuttle took them toward the testing grounds, Izuku figured it was now or never. Be confident. You're not Deku. You're Jade now, and Jade knows what he's doing. So you got a plan? He asked, hoping a casual tone wouldn't provoke him. Just stay out of my way. Kacchan brushed him off. Well, that was almost pleasant. It wasn't productive, but it wasn't volatile, so that was something. I plan to, but I think we're going to need more than that to go off of. He shot back. Oh, damn it, that was too Ivy. He shouldn't be so snide. He wasn't looking to rile him up. Thankfully, Kacchan just scowled at him rather than blowing a gasket. That was strangely tame. What was going on with him? Every instinct he had learned when it came to dealing with Kacchan was screaming at him to just shut up, but they needed to work together. It was their only chance at passing this test, and it was Kacchan's only chance to stay in UA, full stop. We need to work together, Kacchan. We're up against All Might. We can't just shut it, Deku. Katsuki cut him off. All right. Now they were getting somewhere. Kacchan was like a shaken can of soda, and Izuku needed to pull the tab whether he liked it or not. You can't beat him on your own. We need to go in with a plan or we're going to fail, he countered, surprised he was allowed to finish his sentence at all. Katsuki was staring at him with a mixture of fury and confusion. He sat there glaring for a moment before he spoke, almost as if he was waiting until he was calm enough to not shout. What the actual hell was going on with him? I'm not stupid, Deku. I know this is a test, and I'm not gonna fall into whatever shitty trap Hobo Sensei made up. Just stay the hell out of my way. He finally bit back. Ah, never mind. That made sense. He knew Katsuki wasn't stupid, but he had missed the mark entirely and now seemed to be dead set on doing the exact opposite of what he needed to be doing. This was going to be even more difficult to talk him out of. Kachan seemed determined to not risk interacting with Izuku at all. At least that explained why he wasn't messing with him anymore. It's difficult to get in trouble for bullying someone if you never speak to them in the first place. It's the final. Of course it's a test. He played dumb. Kachan mumbled an impressive array of curse words under his breath at his response. He tried to ignore the part of him that found this fun, pissing off Kachan without repercussions, because that wasn't going to lead anywhere good. Damn hobo was looking for a reason to expel me, and I'm not giving it to him, so piss off and shut the hell up. He ended the conversation and walked over to the front door of the bus to wait until they got to their destination. Kaminari was right. This was going to be impossible. End of chapter.